So the best time you really want to check a color, like the ideal thing would be outside, obviously in real natural sunlight.
sure.
I mean, that's going to give you your true color. Not everybody can check the colors outside. You know, you're East Coast.
Right. And for
Okay.
us, like you can get a nor'easter, like a snowstorm, and like you're definitely not checking the color outside.
No, I mean it's kind of pointless if you even tried. So
It really wouldn't work. So a lot like on the Northeast, like it's really just check indoors.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
I
when
mean,
you can, like if it's the few weeks we have of good weather.
yeah, and you're outside going,
Yeah,
oh,
well,
this feels
which-
great.
yeah.
Check my color.
Yeah.
But the one thing you don't want to do is you want to try to have your color done before it even gets inside the booth.
100%.
At least get an idea of what you need to do. I mean, in high production things, you know, shops and stuff like that, sometimes, you know, I am winging it in there and I'm making my spray out as I'm getting coverage on that car and I'm checking it to where I'm matching, and that's not ideal, but, you know, that's what we do.
Yeah. Do you ever, like in the booth, like since you mentioned it, do you ever, like, I feel like old school was like, shut the lights off in the booth, use your light, to look at the coverage.
Yeah.
And I feel like, at least, my part of the US, like our whole thing has been more about like achieving the effect that's on the car. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like 10 years ago, it was like all about coverage. You got to get coverage. And now it's like the cars are so thin, you can see straight through them. Like you go through a dealer and like the bumper doesn't match. You
Yeah.
can see the sealer through the door. So I find that I'm not as often going in the booth with like a sun, color checking tool.
Yeah.
To like check the color that way. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, I'm using that sunlight, but
Yeah.
in different ways. Like I'm not doing what I used to do.
I mean,
I've
the main
changed.
thing, like, you don't want to use your booth lights. They're not going to give you an accurate
Oh,
look
no,
of it
for sure.
whatsoever.
For sure.
Um,
And like if the lights, I mean, that goes to the point of like keep your booth clean, right? Like how many booths in the US have like paint just on the like
Yeah.
plexiglass or the glass, right? Like
I mean, our other shop you were at yesterday, like that booth is brand new, you know?
Right.
This is an older booth. It's got some miles on it. Not everybody has a brand new booth.
Right.
So you have to make do with what you got. Try to keep your booth clean. I mean,
Mhm.
I try to do mine once a week. You know, I
Yeah.
try to scrape the glass. I do the filters every week. I pressure wash the walls. Whatever I have to do to try to keep it as clean as possible. But
yeah.
not everybody has ideal conditions either.
And for sure. And you just got to kind of make do with what you have. I mean, I think the interesting thing though is like what you see in the shop is not what the customer's going to see in their driveway, in their own personal home garage, as they're like parked at their friend's house. So like those are all variables that you really have to think through.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just because it looks perfect, dead nuts in the drive of the shop, the second you go outside,
Could look totally
it could
different.
look awful.
Yeah.
So you really have to look, through a whole variety of lenses to see
Yeah.
if the color's going to match.
And that also comes with those QC sheets, the yellow ones. After I'm
Right.
done, I pull it outside. I check my color match. I check my blend, and I make sure everything looks good. And then we pull it inside. They look at it, and everything looks good. We all check off on it. We know once that car goes back together, it's going to go out the door.
Right.
So if you fail to do those things, you just pull the car out and go next. You don't really even know what you did,
Yeah.
and you want to be proud of what you did.
Right.
So if you do it correctly, and you go through your steps, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And it's not always get it out the door, get it out the door, get it out the door.
Yeah.
Get a quality job out the door, and
It's
then
those details.
the little details. And if you can keep a quality, you're probably going to run through them faster, because the last thing you want to do is repaint the car that was just in your booth
Right.
for a color problem, or
Well, you lose so much time. If the car has to go back into the booth for any reason,
you lost cycle
you,
time,
you
you lost
lost money on
material.
the job.
It's a waste of time.
Point blank. So let's look at the
We'll look at
colors.
my color chips and see where we're at. So obviously we have a new bumper. So I'm going to check to the fender, and then I have to panel paint that fender to the pillar, the hood. So I'm going to check all these spots and see what I got, because this fender may be different from the hood over there.
Right.
Not 100% sure yet. So we'll see what I got.
And do you sometimes like if you're painting a bumper, do you try and match the previous bumper, because bumpers never match the car? Like,
Yeah.
do you ever look at the panel you took off and kind of look at what was there previous, right? Or
So that all depends on how hard that color is.
Mhm.
If I have a really hard color and I have a hard time tinting it, I'm going to look at the old bumper, and if I can make it better, I'm going to make it better, obviously. But if
Right.
if I can match the rear bumper to what's on that car, and I have a hard time with that color, at least my plastics and stuff are going to match consecutively around the car.
right.
But if I can make that color better, I'm going to make that color better.
right.
Why
Right.
not? I mean, then they're going to look at it and be like, man, my rear bumper looks terrible, but my front bumper looks great.
Right.
And then if not, if I match the rear bumper, then I'm like, hey, my car matches because that's how it was when it came in.
Yeah.
So if you can't do better, at least match what they had, as long as it's not like super destroyed, obviously, and it looked terrible before,
Yeah.
then you better do better.
And do you ever have that discussion, or does your shop ever have that discussion? Like, I had a trainer when I was really, really young, like, share this story with me about, like, how, when he was young, he repainted 2 bumpers, and he was all proud of himself because he matched the car.
Yeah.
And he delivered it to the customer, and she was all upset because she thought she had a 2-tone car. You know what I mean? So, she thought that it was different, right? So, for me, I think a big part of like that onboarding process of bringing the client, the customer's car through is to like identify, hey, like, did you notice that your bumper doesn't match your car? Would you prefer us match the existing bumper or match the car? Like, what would your preference be? Because although for you, your ideal is like, oh, I really want to like do better. The customer might be like, oh no,
exactly.
it doesn't.
So
it doesn't
that
look
comes
the way it
along
did.
with the check-in. When they walk the car with those red markers or green markers or whatever, they let them know, hey, your bumper color is off. Your rear bumper color is off. We're going to either match, the OEM what you got, or we will make it better. That way they have an understanding of what's going to go back on their car, and they're not just flying blind when they come pick up their car. They already know, hey, my bumper was off when I dropped it off. They're going to do their best to match what I had, or they're going to make it better.
Right.
And that comes with your check-in. If you inform your customer of what is going to go along with your vehicle, then when they come to pick it up, it's no surprise to what they have. They already are fully prepared for what they're walking into. And that's a key thing, in the front side of that helps me, because they'll make notes on those. Hey, bumper color was off. Or, if I am having a hard time with the color, I will go get them and I will be like, hey, can I see the pictures of when this car was dropped off so I can see that bumper and see how it looked out there in the sun. And, like, oh, it was super dark. Like, okay, I'm good. So my color's 10 times better than that. And if I can make it better, still I'm going to, and that's the key thing. You always want to give them back a quality product.
Right.
But if, you run into those things, it's not a perfect world. It's not a perfect, everything always constantly changes on these cars. Every day. Every car that comes out, they're coming out, like you said, transparent, this and that. It's more of an optical illusion now than it is an actual coverage thing.
Right.
So you want to try to match exactly what they had, as far as texture goes, everything.
The whole point is to make it look like you were never there.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to do. That's the magic of like collision.
You want to put it back to the specs it came out of that showroom floor at, essentially.
Right.
Whether it needs, when you're done painting, you might need a little nib and polish. That's going to happen. Like, you're not going to get a spotless paint job. I don't care who you are. You can have $1 million spray booth. You're going to get nibs in your paint. It's just what it is.
It just happens.
It goes with the territory. Factory paint has nibs in it. Like, you can pick any paint job.
We were talking yesterday about like orange peel.
Orange peel.
Some of the cars that are out here, I mean,
they look like cottage cheese now.
It's texture grit. Like, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
There's so many layers to like color matching that like you may think you're a boss making it look super glossy. Like, oh, great. Like, I made this bumper look so glossy, but the rest of the car looks like
orange peely.
It's oranges across the board. So like now like that bumper just sticks out like a sore thumb. So you have to match the gloss level. You have to match the color. You've got to match like all the angles. There's a lot to consider when you're trying to replicate the look.
Exactly. And everybody always wants to, glass everything out, make everything look perfect. This is not.
Cars don't look that way
anymore.
anymore.
We're not doing show cars.
If it was
in
a 55 Chevy,
world.
then
exactly.
gloss it all day.
Gloss it out, wet sand it, re-clear it. No
that's
problem.
Not production.
That's not
shop.
production work.
Right.
Production work is putting it back to the OEM standards, and those cars have orange peel. You don't have to slick out every single job. I mean, obviously, if you're painting like a Maserati or something, you're going to do your best. Every car, you're going to do your best.
Right.
I don't care if it's a Honda, a Kia, a Maserati, a Jaguar. I'm going to do my best on every single job I touch.
Right.
And, that helps me too. Like, that's what helps build, they help build the name, but your techs also help build you a name as well.
It's a team effort.
It's a team thing.
From the second the customer drops off the car to the day that the customer picks up the car, it's really like all of you together working in harmony to get that job out. So like if there's a failure, it falls on everybody.
It falls on everybody.
Yeah.
It's a group effort. If he misses something or if I miss painting something, I obviously didn't go over my sheet. Or if they didn't put it on the sheet, then that's a miss up there. But then, I see we have a new door. There's door moldings. Do I need to paint those moldings? Did they come painted? They're not on the sheet.
Right.
Oh no, these door moldings are wrecked. We got to paint them.
Well, it's communication. Like, you have to communicate everything. Like, if you see, it's like, you see something, say something.
Exactly.
Right? like if there's something wrong, you got to let other people know. That way it's like, hey, look, this is a little jacked up. What should we do?
Exactly.
Better to have someone else's opinion too, like two sets of eyes rather than one. Like if it's a trick color, like you said before, like it's kind of helpful to have another set of eyes just to be like, what do you think? Like I'm caught between these two.
Yeah.
Before you go and mix color and like waste product, get a second set of eyes.
Especially if you get a hard color, like you burn your eyes out staring at that color. Like
you get blind.
You get blind. You constantly, you're looking at it, you're overthinking it. And sometimes like even like when I'm getting a color, like just yesterday, I had a really hard time with color. I went and grabbed my prepper and I was like, hey dude, I need a second set of eyes. I just need you to look at this for me. Tell me what you think. Yeah. And he's like, oh dude, it looks great. And I was like, dude, I'm seeing something different because I've been staring at that color for the past hour, tinting it,
yeah.
you know, trying to get it right. And then I'm overthinking at that point, which that's going to happen.
Right.
Especially when you have 5 cars behind you and they all need to get painted that day.
Right.
You're going to try to rush.
Right.
But sometimes it's always great to have a second set of eyes. Like, hey, what do you think of this? You don't have to tell me obviously what toners I need to add or tint with, but you know, give me a set of eyes.
What are you seeing?
Is
it too
light,
blue,
too dark?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Cool, then I can put in my brain, okay, I need to adjust that. I need to leave some of this out, or I need to add some yellow to kill that or something. You know, it's always great to have people around you that will help the cause, period, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's a teamwork.
It's
teamwork makes the dream work.
You have to get along with everybody you work with, especially when you work on people's cars.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get along with your body guys. You got to get along with your preppers.
And the technology now, too.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many differences now. Like, you used to be able to mud a bumper or, like, do different things. And now a lot of the OEM standards, like,
they
you
don't
can't.
want hard on a soft surface, you know.
Well, it's the mill thickness of the bumper. You can't, you know, mud something. Like, if there's a ding or a dent, like, technically you're not supposed to do that anymore.
No, you're going to have to heat it up and push it out, you know, plastic finish it, or use the flexible, I forget what that's called. The flexible putty for bumpers. You know, they make special things for bumpers. That's what you need to use on those jobs. You know, just like when I paint a bumper, I should add flex additive into that because it's going to get rock chips.
For sure.
That will help that situation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always, you just want to do everything in your power to make the job correct.
Yeah. And even like, I don't know, so I know West Coast, you guys use different products, but like East Coast, we have hardeners sometimes that we put in, like in solvent-borne paints and things like that. We've got some different things. Like there's some cool components that you can add to bumpers that, you know, if you're using a solvent-borne, same thing.
Exactly. And that goes with whatever rules you're under and wherever you're at, you know.
Right.
Like here, we have a substantial amount of rules we have to follow. You know, some other places back, you know, down south and stuff, they don't have those rules. They can use whatever they want. I'm not allowed to use that. So I make the best decisions based upon what I can use.
Right.
Like you can use solvent-based cleaners. I cannot.
Right.
I can use water. That's about it. You know, wax and grease remover and stuff like that, but I cannot use a solvent cleaner anymore. It's non-compliant.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's where it comes into pre-cleaning all these panels, you know. And every job that comes in our shop, they get pre-washed. They get degreased. They get, you know, the works on them. They get the wheel wells washed, the jams washed. That way you're not pulling a filthy car inside the shop and you expect it to come out clean. It's just not going to happen.
Right.